Young Millionaire thought he was marrying an ugly woman through an arranged marriage, but when she removed her veil, he was shocked by what he saw. The dining room of the sprawling estate was bathed in soft golden light from the crystal chandelier hanging overhead. The table, long enough to seat 20, was set with fine china and silverware, though only 3 chairs were occupied. David sat at one end, his posture relaxed but his jaw tight with annoyance. Across from him, his father sipped a glass of wine, the very picture of composure, while his mother watched him closely, her hands folded neatly on the table. "This isn't happening," David said, breaking the tense silence. He pushed his plate aside, the untouched steak now cold. "You can't be serious." "David," his father began, his tone measured, "this isn't a request. It's a decision that has already been made." David leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair. "A decision made without me. How generous." "Enough with the sarcasm," his mother said sharply. "This isn't just about you. It's about the family. About preserving what we've built." David's eyes narrowed. "And the way to preserve it is by marrying me off like it's the 18th century. To a woman I've never even met." "You'll meet her soon enough," his father said, setting down his glass. "Anna is a respectable young woman from a good family. This arrangement benefits everyone." David scoffed, shaking his head. "Good family, huh? Is that why she hides behind a veil? What's she hiding? A scar? A secret identity?" "Don't be cruel," his mother snapped, her voice icy. "Anna is a private person, and she has her reasons. She doesn't owe you an explanation." "No, but apparently I owe her a lifetime," David shot back. "Why me? Why not let her marry someone else who's willing to play along?" "Because you're the heir to this family, David," his father said firmly. "And the Whitmans are critical to our business. This marriage is as much a partnership as it is a union." David let out a dry laugh. "So it's a transaction. Great. Love clearly has no place here." "Don't be dramatic," his mother said, her voice softening slightly. "You're not being asked to love her. Just to respect her and fulfill your duty." David's hands clenched into fists on the table. "My duty? To marry a stranger? To give up any chance of choosing my own future?" "You'll have everything you could ever need," his father said calmly. "And so will she." David stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I don't need this," he said, his voice low and simmering with anger. "I don't need her." "You'll meet her tomorrow," his mother said, standing as well. Her voice carried an air of finality. "At dinner. And I expect you to behave like the man we raised you to be." David stared at her, his jaw tight, but he said nothing. Instead, he turned and strode out of the dining room, the weight of their expectations pressing down on him like a suffocating blanket. Upstairs in his room, David poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The anger coursing through him was sharp and unrelenting. An arranged marriage, to a woman who wouldn't even show her face. It felt like a bad joke, a relic from a time long past. He downed the whiskey in one gulp, the burn doing little to dull the edge of his frustration. Tomorrow, he thought bitterly. Tomorrow he would meet this Anna and see what kind of game his parents were playing. One thing was certain, he wasn't going to make this easy for anyone. The next evening, the Whitman estate was abuzz with quiet activity as the staff prepared for the dinner. David arrived in his parents' formal sitting room, his expression carefully neutral, though his frustration simmered beneath the surface. His father greeted him with a nod while his mother offered a tight-lipped smile. "She'll be here shortly," she said, smoothing her dress. "Wonderful," David muttered under his breath, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. Moments later, the sound of heels clicking against the polished floor drew their attention. David looked up as a woman entered, escorted by an older man he recognized as one of the Whitman patriarchs. She moved with grace, her posture straight and composed. A long veil covered her face, flowing down to her shoulders, leaving only her strikingly sharp eyes visible. They were an unusual shade of gray, bright and piercing, almost as if they could see through him. "David," his mother said, stepping forward with a welcoming smile. "This is Anna." Anna inclined her head slightly, her voice calm and measured. "It's a pleasure to meet you, David." David hesitated, his gaze fixed on her veil. He extended his hand automatically, but his mind was racing. "Likewise," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. They were seated around the dining table, the atmosphere stilted and formal. David found it impossible to focus on the small talk being exchanged between their parents. His attention kept drifting back to Anna, to her stillness, her measured responses. and most of all to the veil that obscured her face. Halfway through dinner, David could no longer contain his irritation. He set down his fork and turned to Anna, his voice low but pointed. "You don't have to keep that on, you know. No one here is going to judge you." His mother shot him a warning glance, but Anna remained unbothered. Her eyes flicked toward him, calm and steady. "I appreciate your concern," she said softly, "but I prefer to keep it on." David raised an eyebrow. "Why? Are you hiding something?" "David," his mother hissed, her tone sharp with disapproval. "It's fine," Anna said, her voice never wavering. She turned to David, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not hiding anything that matters. What's under the veil isn't relevant to our arrangement." David leaned back in his chair, his arms crossing over his chest. "Arrangement. That's an interesting word for marriage." Anna tilted her head slightly, her tone unflinching. "Isn't that what this is? An arrangement? Your parents need an alliance, and my family needs the same. There's no need to complicate it with unnecessary emotions or expectations." Her words landed like a slap, leaving David momentarily stunned. "So that's how you see it," he said, his voice edged with sarcasm. "No love, no compassion, just a business deal." Anna's gaze didn't falter. "Do you believe otherwise?" David opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, he felt a wave of frustration and confusion. She was so calm, so composed, as if this entire situation didn't bother her at all. "I want to know who I'm marrying," he said finally, his voice quieter but no less firm. "Not just your name or your family. I want to know you." Anna regarded him for a moment before speaking. "You will in time. But for now, all you need to know is that I understand my role in this union. I hope you'll understand yours." Her words struck a nerve. David felt his cheeks flush with anger, but before he could respond, Anna's father cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Perhaps we should move on to dessert," he suggested, his tone light but firm. The rest of the evening passed in awkward formality, with David's parents trying to smooth over the tension while Anna remained as poised and mysterious as ever. When the evening finally ended, David walked Anna and her father to the door. As Anna turned to leave, David couldn't help himself. "Why do you act like this doesn't matter?" he asked, his voice low. Anna paused, her hand on the doorframe. She turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. "It matters. But not in the way you think." And with that, she stepped out into the night, leaving David standing there, his frustration mingling with a flicker of curiosity he couldn't quite shake. The day of the wedding arrived with all the grandeur and opulence one would expect from a union between two wealthy families. The venue was a sprawling estate adorned with fresh flowers and sparkling chandeliers. Guests in designer suits and gowns milled about, exchanging pleasantries and speculations. David stood at the end of the aisle, his posture rigid, his expression betraying his frustration. The ceremony, though extravagant, felt hollow to him, a stage set for a performance he had no interest in giving. When Anna entered, draped in an ornate white gown with a veil that covered her entirely, the room fell silent. Her movements were graceful, her presence commanding, but the veil remained firmly in place, concealing her face. David's jaw tightened as she approached. He could feel the weight of every pair of eyes in the room, the hushed murmurs barely hidden behind polite smiles. "She still won't take it off," someone whispered behind him. "Maybe there's a reason," another voice murmured. The ceremony proceeded with a strange formality. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, and the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said, his tone warm. David hesitated, glancing at Anna. She inclined her head slightly but made no move to lift her veil. With a resigned sigh, David placed a brief kiss on the fabric covering her cheek, the gesture perfunctory and distant. Polite applause followed, but David could feel the tension in the room, the unspoken judgments of the guests. The reception was a lavish affair, held in a grand ballroom filled with champagne, music, and laughter. But the atmosphere between David and Anna remained cold. They sat at the head table, side by side yet worlds apart. David sipped his drink in silence, his eyes scanning the crowd. He caught snippets of conversations, the words cutting through the celebratory air like shards of glass. Why wouldn't she show her face? Maybe she's hiding something. Can you imagine? Marrying someone like that just for a business deal. David clenched his jaw, the shame and anger bubbling beneath the surface. He stole a glance at Anna, who remained composed, her posture elegant. She seemed utterly unfazed by the whispers, her veil still firmly in place. When the evening finally drew to a close, David and Anna were escorted to the private suite prepared for them. The tension between them was palpable as they entered the room, the door closing softly behind them. David shrugged off his jacket, tossing it onto a nearby chair. He turned to Anna, his frustration finally boiling over. "Are you going to keep that thing on forever?" he demanded, gesturing toward her veil. Anna calmly removed her gloves, placing them neatly on the dresser. "Until I'm ready," she replied, her voice even. David's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Ready? For what? To reveal whatever it is you're hiding? Or are you just enjoying this game you're playing?" Anna turned to face him, her eyes meeting his through the fabric of her veil. "This isn't a game, David, and I'm not hiding anything that matters. Not to you, maybe," he shot back. "But I'm the one standing there while people whisper about my wife like she's some kind of mystery. Do you have any idea what that's like?" Anna's gaze didn't waver. "If their opinions matter more to you than I do, then perhaps you should reconsider what this marriage is about." David's anger faltered, her words striking a nerve he hadn't expected. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "I just want to know the truth, Anna. Why won't you let me see you?" "When the time is right," she said simply. "And who decides that?" "I do," she replied, her tone unwavering. David stared at her, his frustration and confusion tangling into a knot he couldn't untangle. Finally, he turned away, pouring himself a glass of whiskey from the suite's bar. "Fine," he said, his voice clipped. "Keep your secrets, but don't expect me to wait forever." Anna didn't respond.